And Jerome Williams got the tip. Now the Childs basket puts the Knicks back up by 5. Hill goes to work. And Buck Williams has the rebound. Almost lost it. And now a foul on Jerome Williams. Mahorn leaves and Brian Williams comes back in.
You gotta love what Brian Williams brings to this basketball team. He brings the inside presence, he brings the post-up ability, and he plays with a type of intensity that's very similar to Jerome Williams. Doug Collins said yesterday they're one power forward away from having a championship team.
A sensational move by Childs, splitting two defenders and then tossing one up off the glass and in. He'll come to the line to try and complete a three-point play.
Well, he reads Brian Williams jumping out. He splits the screens and he gives him the up and under kiss off the glass. But what, see, the problem with four guards, right? Okay, you got Chris Childs now, who's getting ready to play well. He started to play well. You got Starks who's playing well. You got Charlie Ward, Allen Houston. You know, where do you get the minutes to give the guys the type of rhythm that they need to play out on the court?
Three-point play for Childs. Knicks by 8. Hill in a crowd, and he banks it home.
But they got a mismatch right now with Chris Childs guarding Grant Hill. They're going to exploit that matchup in the low post until they decide to do something about it.
Hill has a dozen. Starks left alone for 3 and making the Pistons pay. Doug Collins inherited a team which had won 48 games in the 2 seasons before he got here. In his 2 full seasons at the helm, they won 100. They more than doubled the victory total. But this year, after splitting the first 40 games, he finds himself under fire.
You know, I think Doug Collins is doing an excellent job. You know, I remember when Doug Collins came, you know, he took this franchise over when it had only won 20 games. He's doing an excellent job with the team that he has right now.
We'll continue that conversation after a break. Last year, the Pistons won 54. Doug Collins told us that he knew before the season began they wouldn't win quite that many this year because the Eastern Conference has improved. Even the lesser teams like Boston and Philadelphia aren't automatic victories anymore. So he thought even if his team was intact, they might win only 47-48 as opposed to 54 a year ago. In 96, Orlando knocked them out of the playoffs in 3 straight. Last year, a tough 5-game first-round series, which they lost to Atlanta. But the key stat is he won 100 in 2 years, and they had won 48 in the previous 2 years. He is both the general manager and the coach, so he's assembled much of the team that he coaches.
Well, Doug Collins is a great bench coach, and he's one of the smartest guys who are in the league in his profession in terms of coaching. You know, he does it all for this franchise right now.
Hill with a long one that's no good, starts with a rebound, and he'll bring it out of the backcourt.
I think as a coach, you know, you're not going to out-coach Doug Collins. Now, his players may miss some shots, but at the end of the game, this guy is a master at the end of the game. You never, very rarely, you're going to see him make a mistake at the end of the game.
Sealy steps in front of Johnson and picks it off. Hill on the drive, switches hands, they keep it alive, and it goes out of bounds to New York.
Now, Grant Hill has the ball in his hands a lot. You know, they like for him to take it off the dribble. They like the way he gets to the foul line. They like the things that he can create for others and his teammates. It's going to take all these guys a while to get their rhythm into jail, but under Doug's leadership, I'm sure they will because he pushes them pretty hard.
That graphic showed that today, at least, the 4-guard rotation is working. 27 combined points, all of them shooting well percentage-wise.
Yeah, but the problem comes with that is one of those guys has the capability, and Starks and Houston, both those guys have the capability of going off and getting you 30 to 40 points. When they're sitting over there on the bench, they do you no good.
Larry Johnson's hoop gives him 4, and more importantly, gives New York an 11-point lead. And Malik Sealy can't cut into it. Sealy on Starks. Good pass inside to Buck Williams, and Buck Williams was fouled. A lot lot of viewers in New York may be heartened to see the former St. John star, Malik Sealy. They may have been asking themselves, whatever happened to this guy? You know, if your safety was your primary concern, 3 years with the Clippers might be the next best thing to being in the Federal Witness Protection Program. He hasn't been out of the league. He's just been in relative obscurity now with the Pistons.
It's safe to say that he's been lost.
And now he's been found.
You know, but Malik is an interesting guy. He's a very astute businessman. He has his own tie collection. When I was in Forbes magazine a couple of years back, he was one of the main guys that Forbes talked to about his business.
Knicks by 11. Childs trapped on the baseline, brings it back out. Childs into the lane, through a crowd, and missing, but Buck Williams can't finish it.
Now this is where the Pistons really have to make their move right here.
Stackhouse behind the back and off the glass.
Yeah, he's an exciting player. He's explosive in open court. What the Pistons have to do right here with this lineup, they got to pound the second unit of the New York Knicks. They got to take advantage. They have most of their starters out on the floor, so they really got to take advantage of this lineup here.
That last play showed you one of the things that Stackhouse does best. He's a great transition player.
He's brilliant in the open court. He does all the little things that you like to see happen in the open court. He passes it well. He takes you off the dribble. You know, this guy can do it all, you know, in the open court. He's very exciting. He catches it, and you see, watch him go behind his back right here. Oh, stop, go, stop, pop. Ooh, sweet, hey, where you at? That's Jerry Stackhouse.
And the problem for him in Philadelphia was, in your view?
Well, I don't necessarily know if there was a problem. I think you had two young guys there in terms of Allen Iverson and Jerry Stackhouse. They didn't really know if they can play with each other. But, you know, he's found his way in this league, and I think this guy's going to be a star in this league, just as Allen Iverson is a star.
Buck Williams with a page from a book that he's been reading to the league for many, many years. A little jump book in the lane. Stackhouse through a crowd.
Now, Jerry's one of those guys that he can get in the thing. You know, he can get hot. You know, he can take you off the dribble. He scores in a multitude of ways. He shoots it. He takes it to the hole. He can get to the free throw line. And what Doug Collins is trying to get him to work on now is his defense.
Stackhouse with 10. Johnson had to give it up and threw it to Dumars. In transition again, Stackhouse. Finger rolls it home.
You got to love what he's doing today. You know, it's Sunday and he's on NBC and he's saying, hey, I'm going to show y'all what I got in my bag of tricks.
Technically, it's Saturday, but he's still on NBC. He's shooting 50% on that. That's not bad.
Well, you see him going to the lane. You know, he's in the groove today. He was shooting it real good yesterday, and now you're going to see him float like George Gervin, like they all want to do. Finger roll.
But this latest bit of difficulty for your old teammate, Dennis Rodman.
Well, I want to see what happened. You know, Phil sends him home, and I'm sure when we get there tomorrow, we'll get all the info. You know, I'd like to see what happened. You know, I hate to see Dennis get into any type of trouble because he's having such a great year. He's having an all-star performance, and I hope it's not anything serious.
Well, he missed the shoot-around because reports say he was out till 4 o'clock in the morning, and he wasn't at the library.
Yeah, but those were the New Jersey and the New York reports. Let's hear what Chicago has to say about it.
I'd be surprised if it isn't something similar. Childs gives the Knicks a lead of 9 again at 48-39. Stackhouse could be feeling it, backing in, and an air ball.
But see, that's not necessarily his strength right there in terms of the post-up game, backing people down.
Starks with a quick release jumper that's no good. Hill up on the boards. Dumars for 3. Joe is short with it, but the rebound is clutched by Grant Long, and they'll set it up again. Stackhouse guarded by Oakley. He wants it, loses it, and it's Detroit ball as it's slapped away. Last touch by the Knicks.
Now, Oakley's one of the all-time great defenders. I would hate to drive on this guy because when he hits you, you know, everything hurts. You know, he's like a tree trunk. You know, every time he hits you, it hurts.
Seeley with the catch of the shot. That's no good. Chris Childs quickly back. Is Stackhouse feeling it a bit too much now, forcing things a bit?
No, I think when you got a player who's in a rhythm like he's in right now, everybody on the team wants to see him continue to get off. So you continue, like I said, you feed the pig. You keep him going, you keep him going.
Johnson has it knocked away and a Piston foul.
Now, if he starts missing a lot and he starts shooting too much, then you say the pig is hoggish. then you quietly go over to him and you say, hey, you got to quit shooting now.
Malik Seeley committed the foul, his second. That's Johnson's 5th point.
Now, Stackhouse and I, we were shooting yesterday, and you see all these shots in here. You know, those are the shots that kind of get you going, you know, those shots in there. And eventually you start hitting these shots from out here, and you always start inside and then work your way out.
That cluster of red shots made and then blue shots missed kind of supports the idea that he's a scorer, not a shooter.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. And there's a big difference between a shooter and a scorer. A guy who can score, he can score from anywhere out on the court, but he's not really good from any place. He just gets you points from every place on the court, but he has no certain spot.
Knicks by 11 after the Johnson free throws. And a New York foul on the other end, and now Childs and Hill mix it up a little bit.
Well, New York likes to play a little rough. They've adopted the attitude that the Pistons used to have. You know, the Pistons used to be the bad boys. They used to be the rough and tough team. Pat Riley came from Los Angeles after we beat them in L.A. He came to New York, and he put the same type of bad boy attitude into the Knicks, and they still have a little of that left over.
Not a foul, but rather an illegal defense call against New York.
And Detroit right now has become a finesse team, and I think that's one of the dilemmas that they have. Do they want to be a power team, or do they want to be a finesse team?
Hill was hammered. He was trying to answer. His way of answering isn't so much to throw a punch, but to get the ball on the very next possession and take it to Childs. Tries the floater over him, which he almost hit, but he was fouled in the process.
Well, the problem with being Grant Hill is that every night out, teams are gunning for you. You know, he's the best player on the Pistons, and as he goes, the Pistons go. So every night out, they're sending 2, 3, 4, 5 guys to knock him off his game. But he's smart enough, he's heady enough, he's strong enough in the head that he stays into the game, and he doesn't let that type of stuff distract him.
Foul was on Oakley. Oakley's second. 1 of 2 for Hill, who now has 13 points. Knicks by 10. Final 2 minutes of the half.
Now you got a mismatch now here. Let's see if Larry Johnson can take advantage of it.
Starts with the head fake and the jumper that's good.
See that Larry Johnson draws double teams. He does the things that Patrick Ewing did in the low post. He draws the double team. He starts up for that wide open shot that time. And New York is shooting the ball extremely well right now.
Hill with Oakley helping Childs on him. Good ball movement, and Seeley got it back from Stackhouse. An excellent assist for Stackhouse.
It was a great pass by Stackhouse, a great dunk by Seeley, but at the end of the play, Oakley still put him to the floor.
Just to let him know he's there.
They're going to make you pay. No free chili. And what I mean by no free chili, there's no free layup.
Johnson tries to muscle it up, but misses. Last minute of the half, Pistons down by 10. Open shot from the baseline, no good for Seeley. Houston pulls up and misses a 3. Hill can't control the rebound, New York ball.
Now you wonder why a guy would come down and take a quick shot like that. What New York's strategy was right there was to go 2 for 1. You know, they got 31 seconds left in the game right now, so now they have a chance to get another shot coming back down. That's why you're seeing the quick shot from Allen Houston. You got LJ he's trapped in the post and starts giving him the ump fake. Long goes flying by. That's a picture-perfect jump shot. You know, and now you see Grant Long coming back. He positions himself underneath the basket, and Seeley comes in and slams it over Charles Oakley. I just like to grunt like that because that's how I wish I could have did it. You know, if I could have got up and just dunked like that, that's how I'd have been one of them guys hollering out there. Oh!
31 seconds now to play in the half. New York with the 10-point lead and the ball. Seeley on Childs. Houston screening for him. Now Seeley takes Allen on a switch. 10 on the 24. Houston baseline throws up a lunging shot and is fouled by Seeley, who's pretty close to drawing a technical. Hugh Hollins just glaring at him as Seeley picks up his third. Tonight, NBC Saturday starts with an all-new National Geographic special, America's Endangered Species. Don't worry, Christy Yamaguchi is not one of those endangered species. She's part of the Equal World Professional Figure Skating Championships. Prime time begins at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, NBC tonight.
You know, I like those geographical specials because that's when they like show you all the animals and stuff and the sharks biting. Are you afraid of sharks?
No, not at all. I try to be in the vicinity of sharks as often as I can.
See, I'm one of them guys that won't go in the ocean because I've seen Jaws and, you know, that National Geographic stuff. I like reading about that stuff. You know, I like reading about how the lions bite people and they eat people and all that other stuff. So that never happened.
You know, even before I saw Robert Shaw bitten in half on the deck of the ship, I pretty much understood that I was afraid of sharks.
We need a bigger boat.
Last 10 seconds. Stackhouse almost lost it. Now Mills cuts in front. They may be able to get off a shot, but not that way. 2 bars, and that'll do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the half, the New York Knicks.
The Knicks by a dozen as we reach halftime. John Starks had 10 points in just 13 minutes of playing time. Grant Hill got 10 of his 13 in the second quarter. Stay tuned for the Prudential halftime report right after these messages.
Lisa Molosky, Knicks up by 12 at the half. I spoke with both coaches at the break. Coach Doug Collins said the Knicks screen and roll defense hurt the Pistons in the first half, so the Pistons have to find a way to generate more offense, and they'll do that by moving the ball around the perimeter. Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy said the key to the second half for the Knicks is containing Grant Hill, who has 13 points at the break. They don't want to get beat off the dribble. Bob?
Lisa, thanks a lot. Coming in to this game, Grant Hill was shooting 43% from the floor this year. He's a career 48% shooter. Now, one of the problems for Detroit this year is that in the absence of Terry Mills, who went to Miami, a terrific long-range shooter, three-point artist, and with the line moved back and a bit outside the natural range of Joe Dumars and Lindsey Hunter, the floor has not been opened up for the Pistons this year the way it was the last couple of years. And, of course, when the floor is open, that gives Grant Hill more room to operate.
Well, it doesn't, you know, with the line being moved back, it creates some penetrating lanes for Grant Hill. However, he doesn't necessarily have the shooters that he had last year surrounding him. Now they compact the defense. He's still able to get his points. The problem is the others haven't picked up the slack.
Dumars will still shoot the threes, and he'll still shoot the big shots late in games. Brian Williams, as we start the third quarter, misses the turnaround. Allen Houston snatches the rebound.
Now, what New York has to do right now, they have to come right back and end it and finish it like they did. They have to start the second half the way they finished the first half. They got to establish themselves in the low post, establish Larry Johnson, establish Allen Houston.
Dudley hit with an offensive foul, which causes him to rip off the face mask and voice his protest a bit further.
I think Brian Williams kind of gets, Grant Long gets away with one here. You know, I don't know if that was an offensive foul or not. That should have just been a no call.
Dumars, Stackhouse, Grant Long, Brian Williams, and Grant Hill to start the third quarter. Williams again over Dudley, and this time off the glass.
They've gone to Brian Williams 2 times down court. They're trying to get him established in the low post, going against Dudley. But Dudley's a very good defender. This will be an interesting matchup to watch all night.
Houston into the lane. Rolls it up, no good. Long from Hill, and he'll come to the line.
Now, the reason why that's a block on Charles Oakley is because he was inside the dotted area line. You know, had he taken that charge out, you know, Grant Hill pushes it up, and Charles Oakley is standing underneath the basket.
Let's explain. This is a new rule this year. If you beat your primary defender and someone comes over from the weak side and establishes position, but it's inside that dotted area close to the basket, and then you make contact with him, even if he's established position, that's no longer a charge, it's a block.
Yeah, that's correct. You see these this area right in here, you know. You see Oakley takes the charge right in this area here. You see he's underneath there, and the referee sees it, and therefore he's able to make the call. That little area there helps the referee a lot, because now there's no indecision in what they have when they have to blow the whistle.
1 of 2 makes it 54-45. Houston up top. Starting the second half cold. Hill leads a 3-on-2. Stackhouse in the middle. Leaves it for Long, and Dudley caught up to the corner, and Long keeps it alive for the Pistons.
Great defensive stop by Dudley. He saved the momentum basket there.
And the Pistons come away from this trip empty as Hill misses.
See, that was a big momentum stop for the Knicks. Had the Pistons made that basket, they would have had momentum. Dudley stopped the momentum from being changed right there.
Johnson turns and hits. Knicks by 11. They open the half with Ward and Houston in the backcourt. Oakley, Dudley, and Johnson up front. Williams wants to work on Dudley, takes him to the hole, and gets the roll.
Great move by Brian Williams, and the reason why it was a great move is he spun on him, and then he used his elbow to push Dudley up underneath the rim so he couldn't challenge his shot.
6 for Williams, who came in averaging 17.5, plus 10 rebounds a game, posting nearly all-star numbers in the first half of the season. A foul here on Stackhouse, and let's go back to the last play.
So you look at Dudley right here. He'll streak up the court and stop this momentum basket. The Pistons have numbers. They have a 4-on-2. Dudley comes in and makes the clean block on Grant Long, then tips it out and stops the Detroit Pistons from having a big momentum shift here in the building.
Dudley, his first hoop.
Now, that was the correct call by the lead official, Hugh Holland. Just let it go. The call that they made the last time, they called Dudley for the offensive foul. This time to let it go. No harm, no foul.
Dudley with 2 points, but he has 7 rebounds and a couple of blocks. Williams again. He's going to test him, and he's made 2 in a row on Dudley now.
But see, they're going to Brian Williams 3-4 consecutive times. Now he's got his rhythm, and that's what you have to do with post-up players. You have to keep beating them. And Oakley still has his rhythm.
Oakley now with 8. Williams once again to the hoop. The ball stripped away, and it will belong to Detroit. Williams thought he was fouled.
Well, you got a good battle going there between those two guys right now. Williams plays with great intensity. He gets it going. He's accepted the defensive challenge that Dudley has put up, and now he wants to prove to him that you can't stop me in the low post. And Dudley is saying, I can stop you anytime I want.
And Williams kicks it away, but it's recovered by Hill. 5 seconds to shoot. Dumars, the head fake and the jumper. Good.
Sweet Joe D. I love Joe Dumars. I love playing with him. I love him as a friend. He's a family member. You know, when I was playing here in Detroit with that guy, he was just something special to be with every single day, on and off the court.
MVP of the finals the first time you won it. Dudley with a little left-handed hook continues to battle for the loose ball to the floor, and finally a tie-up.
You know, one of the most memorable moments I ever had in Detroit was with Joe Dumars in the Portland series. when his dad died, and he came out the next night, and he played his heart, and he played his guts out for us, and we ended up winning that game in Portland. You know, that's a special young man that you're watching there in Joe Dumars, and, you know, every family should be lucky to have a member, or should want somebody like Joe Dumars in their family.
Jump ball between Dudley and Williams.
Now, did Williams jump that high, or did he steal the tip?
In any case, it winds up in Ward's hands. Gives it up to Houston.
So you can see Allen Houston has lost his rhythm. He started out the game with a great stroke. He started out the game shooting it well. Now he's come back the second half. He spent a lot of time on the bench. Now he's come back and he doesn't quite have the same type of touch, same type of rhythm and feel that he had before he left the game.
9 points for Houston, who had a brief first quarter flurry. 3 turnovers for him in the game. Williams continues his personal duel with Dudley. Forces one up, perhaps, and misses it.
That's great stuff by Dudley. That's some good stuff there. He's playing him really tough in the low post, making him change his shot, challenging his shot.
Ward for 3. As we mentioned earlier, only Dale Ellis of the Sonics and Chris Mullen of the Pacers have hit a higher percentage on threes this year than Charlie Ward, who represent the Knicks in the three-point shootout at the All-Star game. Hill goes baseline and scores. He's got 15.
You know, Charlie Ward's an excellent three-point shooter. Right now, he's got a good stroke going on. And, you know, when the guy is shooting it that well, you know, you got to leave him out on the court. You got to let him keep playing to get his rhythm.
It'll be Nick Ball when we come back, up by 10.
Nope. Not there.
He has a nose for scoring. He's always around the basketball. He gets it out on the fast break behind his back. You know, finger rolls. He does it all. He can create scoring in so many different ways. And I love the way, you know, everybody imitates George Gervin on the sweet finger roll. You know, and this guy, like I say, he scores a lot of baskets in here because he's always around the basketball. He has a nose for scoring.
In recognition of this look inside the game, Miller Beer will donate $1,000 to the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Fund.
And I don't like the fact that, you know, he beat me shooting yesterday. We were shooting in the gym for about, you know, an hour and a half, and he got into a thing, and he didn't miss. And right now, you know, I'm kind of down to him.
Yeah, you thought you had one of your easy marks again. Ward with another 3. This one's no good. Williams with the rebound.
But I'm going to get you in the game, Bob.
It's got to be a handicap match. You got to give me some kind of spot. Pistons looking to cut into a 10-point Knick lead, and an illegal defense is called on New York.
Jeff Van Gundy said, no, that's not illegal, but the referees are seeing it, and, you know.
That's the second one of the day, and so it'll result in a free throw being taken by the Pistons.
Doesn't he make great faces, Van Gundy? I mean, he's got one of the all-time great coaching faces, you know. Look at him.
Well, he is nothing if not a basketball junkie, a lifelong basketball guy. His dad, Bill, a longtime college coach. His brother, Stan, one of Pat Riley's assistants with the Heat.
Yeah, they got a family of coaching, and that you know, you love to see a guy like him succeed. You love to see a guy like him get his chance, and he's done well with the New York Knicks. Everybody loves the job that he's doing, and he like to, you know, this is a great station, and that you know, you love to see a guy like him succeed. You love to see a guy like him get his chance, and he's done well with the New York Knicks. Everybody loves the job that he's doing, and he like to, you know, this is a great story for a guy like that.
Dumars knocks down the technical. Stackhouse spins around Houston, tries to go with the reverse, and is fouled. And as he prepares to shoot, we'll tell you tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern, NBC's coverage of Super Bowl 32 begins with a 2.5-hour edition of the NFL on NBC. Sterling Sharp's career with the Packers was cut short, but now he's living his Super Bowl dream through his brother, the Broncos' Shannon Sharp. Also, The controversial Bill Romanowski goes one-on-one with Chris Collinsworth. Then the biggest day in American sports, Elway and the Broncos against Favre of the Packers. Super Bowl 32, starting with the pregame show tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern on NBC.
Okay, Green Bay or Denver? Who are you picking?
You're not giving me the points, right? We're just talking about straight up?
Yeah.
I think the Broncos can make it interesting, but you got to pick the Pats. Here's Johnson. He rattles one around and in. And the Knicks are back up by 9 at 65-56. It wouldn't shock me, though, if Denver won the game. Stackhouse. Oh, what a move!
Oh, great.
Making a major bid to star on the play of the day tonight. Man, what a move.
Yeah, that was nice. That was sweet.
Johnson against 3 defenders. Can't hit it.
Yeah, that's one of the plays you go back and...
Houston with a 3.
That was one of the plays you go back and when you get back to your house and late at night, you ask your girlfriend or your wife, you say, baby, did you see that?
And if not, would you fire up the VCR, please? Another illegal defense has been called on the Knicks. So again, it's a technical foul.
We got to look at Stackhouse here. He goes, up, oop, fake your butt. I see you coming. Now I'm going to give you the Michael Jordan sweet reverse off the glass.
Oh, that was Dr. J or MJ territory right there.
Oh, yeah. Now he's going to go home tonight. He's going to tell all his friends, did you see that? And I'm going to say, Jerry, we talked about you on NBC. See, I think the players know when they're on NBC, they got to perform. They got to get down.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll get to the hotel in Chicago tonight in enough time, and I'm sure that Dick Ebersol won't mind if we just sneak a peek at CNN. I bet you right now, that is the play of the day. But just so there's no confusion, you're watching the NBA on NBC.
Bad boy, Bill Laimbeer. Bill, you played 12 seasons right here in Detroit in a Pistons uniform. In fact, all 12 were played with my colleague Isaiah Thomas. Is that a thing of the past? 2 players in the same uniform for 12 seasons?
Well, it probably will be, but, you know, the good teams will always keep their teams together. So if you have championship material on 2 or 3 ball players, it's a natural. You pay them enough money, they'll all stick together because they want to win.
Well, Bill, you're still a big supporter of the Pistons. You've got front row seats. I've got to ask you about my colleague, Isaiah Thomas. He said if there's one guy in the world he'd pick to be in a foxhole with him during a battle, it would be you.
Oh, that's good. It's vice versa. The same thing is true for him, but it's nice to have him back at the Palace. I keep prodding him to get here some more, but now he's got one of those cushy TV jobs, so hopefully we'll see a little bit more of him.
Bill, I've got to ask you, there have been some speculation, some questions to you. Would you ever want to coach again? Or have a
Don't start that rumor. I don't need that right now.
Okay, one last thing. Bob Costas, to you. You said that I was posting you up in the lobby. I'd rather post you up than this guy, Bill Laimbeer.
I understand. Thank you.
Can't argue with that strategy. Here's Houston's shot rimming out. And Grant Hill with the rebound. Back come the Pistons. Trailing by 9. And it stays there. Hustling effort by Grant Long to give them a fresh 24. And a bomb from Stackhouse that's no good. Three-point shooting not exactly his strong suit. Larry Johnson's 3, however, is good for New York.
Now, Larry Johnson he's a guy that can step out and he can hit the three-point shot. You know, he's got very good range. He's got a good touch on the ball from that distance, and they don't mind him taking that shot.
Stackhouse, on the other hand, with that miss, 9 for 46 on threes. Dumars moves it at 2-point range and comes up short. Stackhouse on the glass, and he'll come to the foul line. A year ago, the Pistons were one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. This year, they're next to last. Only Golden State is worse.
Well, what they had last year in the shorter line, you know, they had a couple of guys who can make threes from there. They had Dumars and Terry Mills, and losing Terry Mills, it's been, you know, it's had a dramatic impact on Grant Hill's game. You know, when you look at the threes that they've attempted and where they're shooting today, it's not nearly as well as they were shooting last year. Stackhouse with the hook.
Now Now, Brian Williams made some contact with the rim, but apparently after the ball had already dropped through, the Knicks were calling for a goaltending call, but they don't get it.
You know, Detroit appears to be very tentative in their motions. They appear to be very tentative in their actions. They don't seem to be, you know, quick with the basketball right now.
Stackhouse is plenty quick. And again in transition, he gets back for the slam off the feed from Hill.
Maybe that's the type of spark that they'll need to get them over the hump. But right now, they don't appear to have that type of energy that they've normally had with this quick lineup. But Grant Hill, being one of the best all-around players in the game, draws the D, and Stack finishes it. The dunk. Hook dunk in the net. They make a good defensive play. He sprints down court. Grant Hill sees him. He comes in, and that's just sheer hustle. That's just a desire to want to score. You know, and that's what the great scorers want to do. Every time they see an opportunity, they take off sprints to get to the basket. He beat 3-4 people down court because he wanted that basket.
After the timeout, Doug Collins inserts Malik Sealy, along with Williams, Hill, Stackhouse, and Dumars. Dumars has played a lot of minutes in this game. He'll candidly admit that when they play back-to-back, he's not the player he once was. But with a little bit of rest, he can still go for you, and he can still be the guy in the closing minutes of a close game.
Well, Joe Dumars is a pro, and, you know, he's the pro's pro, and, you know, when that guy is 50 years old, he's still going to be able to do it.
Oakley traveled. So they take the basket away.
See, Doug Collins is searching right now. He's trying to find different lineups. They've come off the West Coast trip. He's trying to find somebody who has some type of energy. Right now, they're struggling right now. Doug Collins has tried a lot of different lineups, a lot of different people looking for someone to give them that spark.
Dumars lobs it into Williams, who has it knocked away by Oakley. Loose ball scramble, poked out of bounds. And it will belong to Detroit, but that was actually a good play by Charlie Ward. He saw that if he didn't poke it away, Williams would just pick it up and have an uncontested dunk.
Yeah, that was a very smart play by Charlie Ward. He used his head real quick, was able to think real quick, and seeing that Brian Williams could have picked it up, he just knocked it right out of bounds. When you look at New York, you know, they're first in the league in terms of points, rebounds, and blocks. Their field goal percentage, you know, their rebounds. You know, this is a tough defensive team, and you're not going to get a lot of easy looks on them. So it's important that you take care of the basketball, and when you have an open shot, you got to make it.
The discussion here is whether or not they should reset the 24. They had reset it to give the Pistons a full 24, but Hugh Hollins, the lead official, goes over and says, no. 7 seconds to shoot. No change of possession.
You know, I've been in a lot of games with Hugh Hollins, and he's one of the tough officials. You don't mess with him. You know, he can, you know, I've seen him toss a lot of guys real quick, and, you know, you see him getting on the scores table. He'll throw fans out of the game. He's a guy who loves the NBA and respects the NBA, and you never get on his turf.
Ward out, Chris in. Dumars whips it inside, and Oakley breaks it up.
Don't fall asleep, baby. See, Oakley's just knocking everybody around right now.
Stackhouse. Dumars beats the shot clock buzzer and gets the roll and popped out and then back in.
Now, you've seen Joe at least 3 or 4 times tonight give the simple show and go. You know, and this is what all young kids, you should look at this, because the fundamentals that this guy has on his shot, you know, he shows it, lets the guy go by him, and then takes a nice, easy shot. You know, Bob Knight used to kill us at Indiana if we didn't shot fake like that.
Detroit on a 6-0 run to cut the deficit to 6. Chris Mills backing in. Both he and Dumars go to the floor, and Dumars can't believe that he's hit with the foul.
I mean, you look at the fundamentals of Joe Dumars. There's the shot fake. There's the follow through. I'm looking. I'm checking it. Oh, yes, go. Oh, I got it. Sweet Joe D.
just like in the playground in Natchitoches, Louisiana. The Knicks lose it. They have 6 turnovers in this game, and 5 of them have been charged to Allen Houston.
See, I think Allen Houston, you know, he's a guy that started off well. You know, he struggled a little bit in this building. He had a good stroke going. He had his confidence. And I think when he went back to the bench, he lost all his rhythm. He sat there for a long period of time, and he didn't get back into the game. And now you want him to come back out and reestablish that rhythm. And that's very hard for a rhythm player and a rhythm shooter to do.
Despite showing some signs in the first quarter, he still has never had a good game against Detroit since leaving here for New York. Hill had an open shot, but couldn't hit it. Goes for the intercept, doesn't get it. Childs with a pull-up. And New York puts a halt to Detroit's 6-0 run and reestablishes an 8-point lead at 73-65. Starks all over Stackhouse, who gets it back on a give and go and wanted a windmill slam it, and it squirted out of his hands like a bar of soap.
Yeah, that was all because of Charles Oakley. You know, he'll sacrifice his body. He does all the dirty work. You know, he's a great teammate. You know, you see him come up here, he steps up, sacrifices his body, falls on the floor. I don't think there's another guy in the NBA who is on the floor as much as Charles Oakley.
Stackhouse picks up the foul, and it's his 3rd. Contact as Childs tries to slide through the pack, and Brian Williams picks up the foul. That's his first.
You know, Doug's searching for a lot of guys right now, and you know, it's going to be a tough 4th quarter for them. If they got to manage right here, they got to stay around these last minute, 8 seconds, not let the lead get to 10.
Oakley hits a 20-footer, and the lead is 10.
See, if that psychological mental number for the Pistons right now, if this lead gets to 12, you know, they're going to have an uphill battle the 4th quarter, and I don't know if they have the type of energy coming off the West Coast to mount a comeback.
They played in Denver Wednesday against the Clippers Thursday. Dumars with a 3.
Yeah, that's my man there. That's Joe Dumars. And you know what? Don't they know that, I mean, he does that, that's his thing. You know, don't they know about him? How can you leave him open?
Oakley swings it to Childs. Spin move against 2 defenders. Connects off the glass.
See, Joe understands the mental and the psychological game. You know, he cut the lead back down. He had it to 7, now they're down at 9. Now he's going to give his team a chance to have a good 4th quarter. That was a big 3 that he made. I guess those guys didn't have cable when they were growing up. Don't they know about him?
Stackhouse into the lane for the floater, and he banks it home. They get to within 7. Collision as Mills comes up with the catch. No foul call.
Oh, he didn't make that one. Oh.
3 that somehow beat the buzzer. But no good off the back iron. So, the Knicks take a 7-point lead to the 4th quarter. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. This, as you no doubt realize, is the NBA on NBC.
You don't need binoculars to see why Escort is so popular. It's a value so enticing, it's like getting cake with extra icing. You can get power.
Plains, New York's 7-point lead. New York 8 of 11 against the Pistons, 2 of 8 on 3s. We start the 4th. Eric Montrose is in the game for the first time wearing 0-0 for the Pistons. Oakley shoots over him, and it rattles in and out. Stackhouse skies for the rebound.
You ask yourself why you see a guy like Montrose now instead of Brian Williams or Mahorn. They're still trying to find the energy. They've come off the West Coast, and like I said, Doug Collins is just searching. He's just trying to buy some time to get to the last 5 minutes of the 4th quarter.
Sealy was fouled cutting down the lane. And a reminder that on Tuesday, when the Pistons play their next game on the road at Milwaukee, you can see it on TNT beginning at 8 Eastern Time. That's Tuesday on TNT, the Pistons and the Bucks. Sealy Sealy at the line. Did you know that Malik Sealy's father was once a bodyguard for Malcolm X?
No, I didn't know that. Really?
And in fact, Malik was one of Malcolm's Muslim names, and that accounts for Malik Sealy. And the 2 free throws account for the Pistons moving to within 5. Childs hammering the dribble, giving it up to Starks. Thought about a shot, but instead goes to Oakley, and Oakley goes to the line after the foul.
Again, you know, the veterans, you know, they know how to manufacture points. They know how to score. They know how to settle the crowd down. You heard the chant, defense, defense. Oakley seeing that and hearing that, takes the ball to the basket, draws the foul, comes to the free throw line to settle the crowd down. Now just be quiet right now because I'm going to take my time, I'm going to bounce it, and I'm going to drain it.
The veteran Oakley comes into the game averaging less than 8 points and right at 8 rebounds. As you see, all the numbers are down for him this year, and this is 13th season.
You know, the things that he does out on the basketball court, you know, they don't necessarily show up in the stats. He's got great picks, he's a great passer, and he always gives the pass up that leads to the basket, the second pass that leads to the basket. You know, Oakley, you know, he's one of them guys that's great for chemistry in the locker room. He's one of their leaders, and he's one of the tough guys and one of the glue guys who's held the team together when Patrick Ewing went out.
Sealy with 5 on the 24 is short with the floater. Montrose battling with the tip, but the Knicks come away with the ball. On the wing, it's Mills, and Mills is fouled. Well, finishing up on Oakley, here's a quote from him. He says, "I'm like a butler in a mansion. I'm happy to clean up and make sure everything's all right." Now, I don't think anybody would ever mistake him for Bruce Wayne's aide-de-camp, Alfred the Butler, but he considered himself a butler in a mansion.
So the reason why, you know, he started the fast break, he got the rebound, he stepped in, got the rebound, and he outlived it quick. So he's the one who made the play possible for Chris Mills to be on the line right now. So what I mean, he does all the little things. He does all the dirty work. And every player would want a teammate like Charles Oakley. Now you look at the tattoos on Chris Mills' arms. I remember when Dennis Rodman first got his tattoo and he walked into the locker room, and Lambeer and I looked at him like he was crazy. Now every time I look at somebody, they got a tattoo on their arm, on their leg, or someplace else.
But that doesn't invalidate your initial reaction to Roger.
Oh yeah, we thought he was crazy.
That's what I'm saying. Here's Dumars. And Mills with a rebound.
But we loved him as a teammate.
Knicks by 8. Nice pass from Oakley to Starks.
I see that's Charles Oakley at his best. You know, they've walked the lead up to 10, and Charles Oakley has been involved in every single play.
Knicks on a 5-0 run. The basket for Starks gives him.
Well, let's take a look at Charles Oakley. You'll see him catch the ball right there, and you'll see him read all the options. He reads the cut there, and you'll see Starks makes the slip right there, and Oakley finds him, reads it, sweet pass. When you look at Starks right here, he'll fake the screen. You see him give the hand signal, then he pushes Sealy away. That's beautiful. That's beautiful basketball. That is beautiful basketball.
Talk about balanced scoring. 6 Knicks are in double figures, but all between 10 and 13. Larry Johnson is their high man with 13. And Chris Mills has 9, so he might shortly become their 7th player in double figures.
But the reason for that is the big guy's out, so now the ball moves more, they distribute it to each other more, and they're playing unselfishly. They're really passing the ball well.
Stackhouse with the turnaround that comes up short, but he was fouled by Starks, and the Knicks are shooting a tremendous percentage from the field as well. Jeff Van Gundy told us before the game that one of the things that concerned him even entering this season was that the team would have a hangover from the way last year ended with the 3-1 lead in the playoffs against Miami. Ewing and several other players come off the bench. They get suspended for the next game. They blow the series. They won 57 last year, but the season ended with a bad taste in their mouths. Then they come in this year, and by mid-December, they're without Ewing, likely for the rest of the season. They could have given up. The Knicks may be a flawed team, and maybe even with Ewing, they weren't a true championship contender. But nobody can question their heart, the way they played amid adversity.
Well, they have pros. They have some veteran guys, and they have a lot of pride on this team with Charles Oakley and Larry Johnson. You know, those guys have carried teams before, so it's not uncomfortable for them to step up and carry that load again.
Stackhouse's 2 free throws give him 24. Lots of contact, offensive foul on Chris Mills. So the Pistons will have the ball down by 8 with 9.5 minutes to play.
Well, the question is, was Grant Hill inside the dotted line or outside the dotted line? He was there. Great call by the official. He read it all the way.
Johnson deflects the pass from Hill intended for Williams and picks it off. Childs back. Chris Childs.
New York is playing with a sense of urgency. They're playing like this is a playoff game for them. They've come in here with the attitude that we want to prove that we can win on the road. There have been some questions, some doubts in New York about whether they can go out and do that. And they've come with the attitude that they want to prove it.
Tough move for Grant Hill, who has 17 points, but just 4 of them in the second half. Johnson, short. Rebound to Stackhouse. Gets it back from Williams, and Stackhouse will come to the line with a chance to complete a 3-point play, and if he does, the Pistons will be as close as they have been since very early in the game. They can cut it to 5 with the free throw.
That was a nice play, and with Stackhouse and Brian Williams, they're still learning each other. So every now and then they'll make spectacular plays like that, and then you'll see them throw the ball away. But as they play together, as they stay together, they'll learn each other's moves, and they'll make more plays like the one you just seen.
27 for Stackhouse. The foul on Starks was his 4th.
You know, Stackhouse can put points on the board quickly.
Childs finds Mills for the 3 that is short, and Williams has the rebound. The Pistons with a chance to make a game of it. Stackhouse. Can't hit it.
But that's a very smart play by Grant Hill. You know, he's feeding the pig. He's giving it right back to Stackhouse. He thought he had something. He pulled it back out, gave it up to Stackhouse. That's a very smart play. They like to keep the ball in Grant Hill's hands because he can make great decisions with the basketball, and he can also score.
New York wants a timeout. They lead it by 5, and you're watching the NBA on NBC.
Some people, the word luxury means sophisticated styling. To others, it's innovative technology. Still others define it as pure performance. Since every Acura is designed with all of those qualities.
Charles Oakley's all-around game. You know, he's had a great game here today. He's done it all. You know, he's a great 15-foot shooter. You know, he rebounds well, and then he gets it out quick for the outlet so they can start the fast break. And he passes as well as any big man in basketball. You know, he's a great leader for their team. He supplies all the leadership now that Patrick Ewing's out. You know, he's one of the toughest guys. He takes the tough assignments. He does all the dirty work, and, you know, he's smart out on the court, too.
Knicks lead trimmed to 5. Starks with a 3. Can't up it to 8. Williams juggles it but comes away with it and then loses it on his attempted pass to Sealy. Chris Dudley is not in the game as we move toward the midway point of the 4th quarter. You could make an argument that the Knicks could use his defense here. On the other hand, you fear, as we mentioned earlier, his free throw shooting down the stretch in a close game.
Well, right now, the New York Knicks, they need to keep scoring baskets. You know, they need to hold Detroit off right here because Detroit is making a run. So not having Dudley in the game right now actually helps them because Detroit is picking up their defense and they're trying to cut into this lead. So New York needs to keep scoring.
Williams kicked it. New York ball from the side.
Again, Oakley steps out for the release. Smart play.
That was a 2, and there's no way he wanted to do it that way, but he'll take it.
Now, if we was in the park, they'd say that doesn't count because you didn't call bait.
In a game of horse, no one's going to get an H hung on them because of that. That wouldn't count if you don't call it. Stackhouse finding Hill into the lane for the finger roll.
See, Grant Hill knows how to pick his spots. You know, he knows when to drive, when to score. You know, he knows how to get into the lane. He's a very smart basketball player, very savvy out there on the court.
19-4, 6 in the second half. A whistle for a Detroit foul as we look back to the last play. Stackhouse feeding Hill.
You know, Grant Hill knows how to pick his spots. He grabs around. You know, I'm just a finger roll kind of guy, but Grant Hill understands. You know, he gives him a little shot fake there, a hop step. You know, those type of fundamentals that he learned at Duke under Krzyzewski, you know, are coming into play here in the NBA today.
Fouls on Stackhouse, his 4th. Oakley unleashes one and misses.
Did a rebound with 2 hands, pushes it up. Now he'll take his time, you know. He sees the mismatch. You know, this is, you know, he's been waiting around to see when does his team need him to take over.
That was Oakley's 4th. And now Hill will have a chance to draw the Pistons to within 3. Tomorrow, the NBA on NBC continues at 12:30 Eastern with Showtime. Then in the first rematch since last year's finals, it's Malone, Stockton, and the Jazz against Jordan, Pippen, and the Bulls. The NBA on NBC tomorrow.
I'm really looking forward to that game tomorrow because you have, you know, the 2 MVPs. You know, Jordan. There was some debate about who was the MVP last year. Was it Jordan? Was it Malone? Malone won the MVP. Jordan's on track this year to win the MVP. And I want to see how those two match up against each other and who brings the energy and who brings the hype.
Jazz lost last night at Indiana. Here's Johnson. Count it plus a foul.
Larry Johnson will use his body down there against Grant Hill. You know, Grant Hill may be taller than him, but he uses his body well underneath. You know, he spreads out, he gives him a little push right there, and he extends to the other side of the basket. LJ is classic underneath. You know, and you look at these 2 guys here, Larry Johnson and Allen Houston. These are the 2 guys who carry the load since Patrick Ewing has been out. You know, Larry Johnson carried that Charlotte Hornets team. Now he's back to carry this New York Knicks team. He's not in a very unfamiliar role. This is what he likes to do.
Dumars in for Detroit with Sealy and Hill, Stackhouse and Williams. They trail by 7 again. Hill working on Johnson, then finding Sealy. Too long with it. Childs for the rebound. You saw Seattle leading the Lakers by 6 in the 4th. Seattle leading the Lakers by 6 in the 4th. Whichever team wins that game will give its coach the honor of being on hand for the All-Star game as the Western Conference coach. Oakley grabs the rebound and then half throws Hill to the floor, but Hill had him wrapped up, and the foul is on Grant.
Oakley's great. You know, he's one of those guys that, you know, you always want a guy like this on your team, and you hate to play against him because he's always hitting you, he's always pushing you, he's always doing something to get inside your head. But you want a guy like this on your team because he'll come up with the big rebounds, and he'll also set the tough screens and make the good passes.
So either Del Harris or George Karl coaches the West, depending on the outcome of today's Sonics-Lakers game. It looks like Phil Jackson will coach the East. The cutoff is after Sunday's games. But there's a chance that it could be Larry Bird if the Pacers beat the Celtics tonight in Indianapolis. and the Bulls lose tomorrow at home against the Jazz.
So I think it would be great if Bird got a chance to coach the All-Star team, because I would love to see Bird in the huddle telling Michael Jordan what to do. That would be a sight to see, and I would love to be in the building talking about it.
Oakley with the steal.
See, that's why Charles Oakley hurts you. You know, he does all the little dirty things.
Houston all the way to the hoop. And Oakley is there to tip it home, asserting himself here in the floor.
He's the man, and they love him. Look, they love him.
Larry Johnson throwing a bear hug on it. Well, if he's the butler, the Mansion's looking pretty good right now.
You can't back it.
And cut it to 4. New York rattles off 7 unanswered points in 62 seconds and leads by 11.
Charles Oakley. That's the reason why that happened.
At both ends of the floor, he's been doing it. Offensively, he now has 15 points. Grant Hill gives it up to Sealy. And Malik Sealy hits.
Now, these last 5 minutes, you know, it'd be interesting to see who Detroit tries to establish as their go-to guy. You know, will it be Grant Hill? Will it be Brian Williams? Will it be Jerry Stackhouse? Who steps up and supplies the energy for them down the stretch?
Well, if there's been one rap throughout his career on Hill, it's that he doesn't demand the ball and really assert himself in these situations. What do you think?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think, you know, his game is one that, you know, dictates that he can do it himself and he can also get other people involved. You know, he's like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson. Those guys don't always take the last shot. They'll draw and create, and then they can make the shot also.
Childs almost picked it off. Dumars kept it alive. And now they do steal it. Here comes Allen Houston.
And this is what Bill Collins talked to us about yesterday. He talked about how at the end of the game, with 5 minutes to go, his team seems to fall apart. You know, he talked about them having a 1-point lead against Chicago a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and 4 minutes to go in the game, they fell apart. You know, that's his dilemma. You know, how do you get them to complete and finish the game?
They're a 500 team that could be better. They've had any number of games this year where inside the last 4 minutes they haven't been able to get the critical stop or the critical basket when they've needed it. But, you know, for the sake of argument, it's true that Michael Jordan will give it up if he's double-teamed with the game on the line, like last year's clincher in Game 6 when he found Steve Kerr. But he wants the ball, and he's going to take that shot with the game on the line if there's any shot at all there for him. And some people think that maybe the more apt comparison is not Hill to Jordan, but Hill to Scottie Pippen. Maybe Hill's game is more similar to Scottie's.
See, I think mentally and psychologically for Grant Hill, he has to keep pushing the envelope and keep trying to reach the level of Michael Jordan. And don't settle for reaching the level of a Scottie Pippen. You know, you always shoot for the moon, and if you fall on the star, it's okay. You know, Grant Hill is one of those guys that can take over a basketball game and will take it over.
Here he goes to the hoop, but he's stripped of the ball. And the Knicks may have just about put this one away. They're up by 11, just over 3 minutes to go.
You know, I think he's got a chance in this league to be one of the top players, you know, to win championships.
Houston with the turnaround, it's no good. And a whistle away from the ball as they tussle down low.
See, when you look at Grant Hill, you look at the guys who are around him and you say, do these guys complement his skill set? You know, Grant Hill's skill set is he's a slasher. He likes to get into the lane. He can control the ball out front and underneath. Now, is the guys who are playing with him, do they complement his skill set? Does Brian Williams complement Grant Hill's skill set? Does Jerry Stackhouse complement Grant Hill's skill set? Terry Mills complemented his skill set. Otis Thorpe complemented his skill set. The jury is still out if Brian Williams and Stackhouse complements Grant Hill's skill set. And who are you going to build a team around, Brian Williams or Grant Hill?
Childs through a crowd, then back up to Oakley, who misses from 20, and Williams has it. Oakley has 17 points. His high game for the year is 19 against Vancouver. He almost matched it there. Stackhouse with a brilliant move. And he has 30. Both teams now are over the foul limit as we move into the last 2.5 minutes of play. Childs all the way to the basket. Chris Childs with a big hoop. And it's back to a 10-point lead. Knicks trying to win 4 in a row for the first time all year. And closing in on it. The Hill missed, rebounded by Oakland.
But Detroit's going to have some tough decisions to make in the offseason. You know, they made the trade for Jerry Stackhouse. They got rid of the power forward of the future and Theo Ratliff. You know, and now they're looking.
That was a 2 and Houston missed it.
Now, if they lose Stackhouse in the offseason, they got 2 spots that they have to fill. They have to fill the shooting guard spot if Stackhouse leaves, and they also have to fill the power forward position because they don't have Theo Ratliff there. So they've kind of gambled here.
Stackhouse, who already has 30, was fouled by Childs. While we have a chance, perhaps Red Holzman, the 77-year-old former coach of the Knicks, took them to 2 championships with great teams in 1970 and 73. A star in the early years as a player, the early years of the NBA, late 40s, early 50s. Perhaps Red Holzman at age 77, ailing with leukemia, hospitalized the past couple of weeks, is watching this game. There isn't a person in the NBA who doesn't send their best wishes to one of the great figures in the history of the league and in the history of New York sports, Red Holzman.
Without question. You know, guys like him, they paved the way for, you know, young guys like us to be here today.
Stackhouse with 32, but it might not be enough. Johnson battling in the lane, and it won't drop for him.
That's good defense by Brian Williams. Larry Johnson gave him every fake, and Brian Williams didn't go for any of them.
Malik Sealy with a 3 that might have given them a chance, but the ball out of bounds to New York.
Brian's a little upset right now. You know, he's a very intense guy. You know, he wants to win. They've come off the road. He's missed the last 2 games. He's trying to do anything he can to get his team going. They seem to be running in mud right now.
Detroit 2 for 9 on threes. The Knicks 8 of 13. That alone explains the difference, although there have been other factors. Hill has it, but only 45 seconds remain. They trail by 8. Stackhouse. Dumars. Hill could have taken the 3, instead takes it to the... And Detroit will still have it.
See, they've yet to find their chemistry. They've yet to gel, you know, as a basketball team. They made the trade. They acquired Brian Williams, and they've yet to find a rhythm that they had last year. They were so successful last year because all those guys knew each other. They played together. You know, they've yet to find their rhythm right now.
Tonight at 9 Eastern and Pacific, the conclusion of the Equal World Professional Figure Skating Championships. Christy Yamaguchi defends her crown versus a field of stars including Oksana Bayul, Nancy Kerrigan, and Ekaterina Gordieva. Don't miss the exciting conclusion tonight in primetime on NBC. And our producer David Neal informs you that time permitting at the end of this game, we'll take you out to the great Northwest for the conclusion of the Sonics-Lakers game. Just about the only Knick who can't be satisfied with his performance today would be the former Piston, Allen Houston. 4 of 13 for 12 points, but he has 5 turnovers.
But when you win, you're always satisfied. It doesn't matter how many points you score. You know, Allen Houston, he just wants to come into Detroit and beat them. He doesn't necessarily want to score a lot of points.
Stackhouse missed. And the Pistons aren't going to bother to foul in this situation. It's a lost cause. Down by 8. Childs beating the cutting Houston, but he can't buy a break. It rolls off for him. Stackhouse. Whoa!
Nice.
Another clip for the highlight reel. He's had 4 or 5 of them today.
But what made the play is he faked the 3-pointer. He gave that low heads up. Watch it. Ooh, oh, got you leaning. Now I'm going to give you the doodoo. Now in the old days, Oakley would have grabbed him, hammered him, slammed him, broke him in two, and he wouldn't even been able to go to the free throw line. But now you can't do that these days.
That was Oakley's 5th foul, but what a game he's had. 17 points and a dozen rebounds.
You know, Charles Oakley, you know, he's great for the New York Knicks. And, you know, I talked to Ernie Grunfeld when I was GM in Toronto about Charles. And, you know, he has a warm spot in his heart for Charles Oakley, you know, and all the Knicks does. You know, he's their guy. You know, even when Ewing is there, you know, he's their rock.
Let it go.
Stackhouse with 35. Starks is fouled. Steve Henson just came into the game. So he will not have the DNP next to his name. He was playing in Italy the last couple of years. Then in December, went to the CBA with the Grand Rapids Hoops. Was there for about a month. He's the king of the 10-day contracts. Been knocking around the league for years with the Bucks, the Hawks, the Hornets, the Trailblazers.
So, you know, when you're on a 10-day contract, you like coming in, getting that fresh NBA money. You get to hang around with all the guys. And if you're lucky, you get like a good road trip like the one he just came off where you're in L.A. and Denver. You know, those are the type of cities that the 10-day guys like to go into. But those 10-day guys, they want to come in and stay for 20, 25 days, possibly a year if they can.
Starks makes it 99-92. He has 16. Henson ahead to Williams and out of bounds.
And that's the type of thing that gets them 10 days on a 7-day.
That's it. The Knicks have won 4 in a row for the first time all year. And the Pistons dip under 500. Our thanks to Elliot Kalb, Mr. Stats, working with us. Again, the final, 99-92 Knicks. Now we send you to Seattle for the conclusion of the Sonics and Lakers. Tom Hammond, Bill Walton, and the snapper, Steve Jones. See you tomorrow.